This one's still in college that can't even let the Caitlin Clark name come out of her mouth. I mean, good grief. It's wild.
Did you catch what Juju Watkins said about the growth of the WNBA? She's praising A.A. Wilson for all the credit, but when you look at the numbers, things don't quite add up. It's got basketball fans talking.
In a recent interview with Forbes, Watkins reflected on the WNBA's growth and the players who paved the way. While many might credit Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese for the league's increased visibility, Watkins gave the nod to someone else, her idol, reigning MVP A'ja Wilson.
Why is Watkins overlooking Caitlin Clark's huge influence on women's basketball? We're about to dive into the real reasons behind the WNBA's growing popularity, and trust me, you'll be surprised by what we discovered. So, who exactly is Juju Watkins? Well, she's dominating the court at USC, averaging an amazing 27 points per game as a freshman. It's not just that she's talented, she's shaking up the college basketball scene.
And Watkins has, of course, looks like a phenomenal college player. I'm not hating on the basketball side of it. I think she's averaging 21.7 right now, but she averaged 27 last season. Hell, that's impressive. Plays for USC.
Here's where it gets even more exciting. Watkins just scored a major NIL deal with Forbes. That's right, she's not even in the WNBA yet, and she's already making waves off the court. It's clear that Watkins is a rising star, and everyone is starting to take notice.
But to say that she doesn't have effectively limitless potential in the sport of basketball is incorrect. Like, Juju Watkins has crazy potential as far as she could be one of the better best women's basketball players of all time.
You might think this is just another story about a talented young player, but there's more to it. In her Forbes interview, Watkins had some surprising things to say about the WNBA's growth. You probably expect her to mention Caitlin Clark, especially since Clark's been everywhere in the news lately, but that's not what happened.
She didn't mention Clark one time. That she's a great player, blah, blah, blah. The comparisons are awesome. I have so much respect for her. Nothing. Here we go again.
Instead, Watkins credited her idol, A'ja Wilson, saying,
"Yeah, I'm a big A'ja Wilson fan," Watkins said, making it clear who she believes is instrumental in the league's success. "So I'm more of a player person, not really teams. But I love my LA Sparks, being from LA, but I'm a big A'ja fan. Just the way she's so dominant on the floor is really inspiring. She is a hell of a player."
Look, Caitlin Clark can't be Juju Watkins' idol since they're from the same era, so it makes sense for Watkins to look up to A'ja Wilson. But when it comes to giving credit for the WNBA's growth, that's where things get tricky. A'ja Wilson may be a huge influence, but she isn't solely responsible for the league's rise.
The reality of the situation is that who you're a fan of doesn't really matter, and I don't think Juju Watkins necessarily is looking up to a Caitlin Clark or an Angel Reese. I'm just saying, I get it. Caitlin Clark's big thing was when Juju Watkins was in high school, but again, Juju Watkins was still Juju Watkins at that stage.
Let's get this straight. Juju Watkins, one of the hottest names in college basketball right now, is giving all the credit for the WNBA's growth to A'ja Wilson. Not a single mention of Caitlin Clark or any of the other players making waves. It's almost like Caitlin Clark doesn't even exist in Watkins' world.
Watkins stopped short of mentioning Caitlin Clark or Angel Reese, both of whom have become household names for their fierce rivalry and impact on women's basketball.
Now, you might be wondering, is A'ja Wilson really responsible for the WNBA's surge in popularity? The answer is a big no. So, is Watkins onto something, or is she missing a key factor? We've got some eye-opening numbers that tell a very different story about who's really driving the growing interest in women's basketball.
Because there is no universe from a popularity and a draw standpoint where she is worth more than Caitlin Clark. It's not even close. It's not even in the same ballpark. It's not on the same planet. And that's not to be disrespectful. That's just based on the metrics, the numbers, the attendance, the ratings, any way you can measure any of these things.
But before we dive into those stats, let's pause for a moment. Why would Watkins overlook Caitlin Clark's impact? Is it just because she's such a big fan of A'ja Wilson? Or is there something else at play? And what does this say about the future of women's basketball, especially with rising stars like Watkins about to join the league. Now, let's get into the cold, hard facts. Think you know who's driving the interest in women's basketball? Think again. We're about to break down some viewership numbers that'll make you rethink everything you thought you knew about the WNBA's popularity. Let's start with the 2023 WNBA Finals, featuring A'ja Wilson and the Las Vegas Aces.
None of the 2023 final games drew 1 million viewers, with an average viewership peaking in a decisive Game 4 at 889,000 viewers.
Did you hear that? You'd think these games would be drawing massive crowds, right? Well, brace yourself, because not a single game hit the 1 million viewer mark. Can you believe it? The highest rated game only reached 889,000 viewers, which is surprisingly low for a championship series. But hold on, it gets even worse.
By the way, I still saw Las Vegas Aces games with A'ja Wilson this year draw under 500,000 viewers.
Some regular season Aces games couldn't even break 500,000 viewers, less than half of what the finals managed. You might be thinking, okay, maybe that's just how it is with WNBA ratings. Well, hold on tight, because we're about to flip that narrative. Let's talk about Caitlin Clark. Remember how the WNBA Finals couldn't even hit 1 million viewers?
Really? I think Caitlin Clark averaged 1.14 million or something like that, and as the games went on, the higher the ratings got.
That's right. Caitlin Clark's WNBA games are averaging 1.14 million viewers. A rookie is consistently outperforming the WNBA's biggest stage. But we're not done yet. When it comes to the playoffs, Clark's numbers skyrocket. Her opening round game pulled in a hopping 2.54 million viewers. That's almost 3 times what the WNBA Finals got. It's not even close.
In the playoffs, she drew 2.54 million opening round. I mean, come on. What are we doing here?
So, what does this all mean? It means Caitlin Clark isn't just popular. She's a ratings powerhouse. Her games are consistently outperforming the WNBA Finals in viewership, and we're talking millions of viewers, not just a small margin. Now, remember what Juju Watkins said about A'ja Wilson being responsible for the WNBA's growth? These numbers tell a completely different story. It's clear that Clark is the one driving the viewership boost.
Again, she hasn't shaken the needle in women's basketball. In popularity, attendance, gate revenue, ratings. Nah, it didn't happen.
But here's where it gets really interesting. If Caitlin Clark is already pulling in these kinds of numbers in the WNBA, what does that mean for the league's future? These numbers don't just challenge what Watkins said. They completely flip the script on who's actually driving interest in women's basketball. And by the way, when it comes to the list of people pushing for women's basketball, A'ja Wilson isn't even in the top 3.
It is fair to point out the second biggest draw in the sport is Angel Reese. Well, the biggest draw in the WNBA is Angel Reese. Second biggest draw in the sport, yeah, I'll say Angel Reese. Paige Beckers is probably at 3 right now, but A'ja Wilson is like 5 or 6. Like, yeah, she's still one of the biggest draws. She's still a better player than them all, but like A'ja Wilson's not that crazy a draw.
So, the next time someone tries to tell you who's responsible for the WNBA's growth, remember these numbers. In the world of sports, ratings don't lie, and right now, they're telling a story that some people in the WNBA might not be ready to hear. The world of women's basketball is changing fast, but a growing divide in the WNBA is sparking talks about Caitlin Clark. Some black players, including those not yet in the league, seem to be giving Clark the cold shoulder. And it's not just about competition. What's really going on behind the scenes?
Seriously, we're going to do this again? That's what we're doing? Yet another player, this one's still in college, that can't even let the Caitlin Clark name come out of her mouth. I mean, good grief. It's wild.
Remember how Juju Watkins didn't mention Caitlin Clark in her Forbes interview? Well, it turns out she's not the only one staying quiet about Clark's influence. When asked who's responsible for the WNBA's recent success, some others, like Watkins, gave all the credit to A'ja Wilson. She said, "I'm a big A'ja Wilson fan. Just the way she's so dominant on the floor is really inspiring."
She didn't mention Caitlin Clark one time. That she's a great player, blah, blah, blah. Hey, the comparisons are awesome. I have so much respect for her. Nothing. Here we go again.
But here's where it gets really interesting. This attitude seems to be spreading across the league, with some players hesitant to give Caitlin Clark any credit for the WNBA's growth. And with Juju Watkins showing the same mindset, it's definitely
And I
raising
swear to
concerns.
God, if this person is already showing the jealousy spark, the petty spark that is wrong with most of the WNBA players when it comes to Caitlin Clark. Now, I won't lie to you, this article and all these articles that I found on this mention Angel Reese too. I'm not mentioning Angel Reese in this because she wasn't responsible for the growth of the league. And neither was Asia Wilson.
Now, you might be thinking, is this just healthy competition, or is there something more going on? Some are calling it jealousy, and honestly, it's hard not to see it that way.
Which is why Asia Wilson's had such a piss-poor attitude about everything Caitlin Clark related. Jealous pettiness, it started there. Goes after CC's fans, tries to make it about black and white, make it about race. And here we are with Juju Watkins.
But here's another angle to consider. Maybe this reluctance to mention Caitlin Clark goes beyond personal feelings. Could it be a strategy to keep the spotlight on current WNBA stars? Or perhaps Juju Watkins believes she can one day compete with Caitlin Clark's success, which is a big stretch.
The anti-Caitlin Clark bunch is already trying to do it. Paige Beckers, Juju Watkins. They're supposed to be the next big thing. The anti-Caitlin Clark bunch out there will tell you that they're going to be better and more popular than Caitlin Clark. Guys, I got to tell you, I don't buy that for a solitary millisecond.
Get this. Experts are saying that if Caitlin Clark gets injured, WNBA ratings could drop by as much as 100%. Can you believe that? The entire league's viewership could potentially vanish without her. That's not just star power. That's game-changing influence.
And like, if Caitlin Clark tears her ACL and misses her entire fourth year of college, it goes right back down. The WNBA doesn't have its exponential growth. Like, if Caitlin Clark goes back for year 5 and Angel Reese goes out by herself and it's Cardoso and Brink goes number 1 to the Fever, like, the league doesn't have that much viewership. Let's be completely honest here, that doesn't happen.
Caitlin Clark isn't just popular because she's good at basketball. She's changing the way people view the women's game. Her electrifying style of play is drawing in fans who never even considered watching women's basketball before.
Carrington all over her. Clark eyes up. Bounces to Boston. Boston one-on-one with Jones. Will flip it in.
2 for 1.
Clark bounce pass. There's Boston.
You know those people who always said women's basketball was boring? Caitlin Clark is making them eat their words. Her long-range threes, no-look passes, and clutch performances are turning skeptics into die-hard fans. She's not just playing the game, she's redefining it. And it's not just about TV ratings. We're seeing record-breaking attendance at her games, with arenas packed to the rafters by fans eager to see Clark work her magic in person. She's not just filling seats. She's creating an atmosphere that rivals the biggest games in sports.
Stacy, the fans here are absolutely ecstatic. When Caitlin Clark declared for the draft a few months ago, the team knew they were getting a megastar. It's Caitlin Clark. We all know that. They are now seeing that the Clark effect is living up to the hype.
Caitlin Clark.
From a draft party.
Yeah, baby, number 1.
Where nearly 6,000 people attended.
Look at the crowd here. You can see where she ranks on anticipation. This is amazing to have. I was here for the draft party a few years ago, and it was nothing compared to what it is now. This is amazing.
To the team store, where gear is flying off the shelves.
Now, you might be wondering what this means for the future of women's basketball. Caitlin Clark's impact goes far beyond just ratings. She's inspiring a whole new generation of players and fans. She's changing perceptions and breaking down barriers. In short, she's taking women's basketball to places it's never been before.